Previously on the Hot and Cold podcast.
Hot and Cold podcast is adopting an animal, Axel.
Yes, baby, we're doing it.
Hey, hold on, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go over the rules again. I'm not a doctor.
I've been married a long time ago.
Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where
did you come from,
Cotton Eye Joe?
I need to learn.
I got the COVID, and it was just a hangover. Let's start off. I brought the whiskey.
Okay.
You want a glass?
Let's get a glass of whiskey.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Natalie Stalmach, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Get on the mic. I'm a mic snob. If you get away from the mic again, we're going to have problems.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
CASA.
Yes.
What does CASA mean?
So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates.
Okay. And tell me your association with CASA and what you do with them.
So I'm the Director of Development, and I work with our fundraising team and marketing and PR. So getting the word out about what we do, that's one of our sort of big barriers because it's an acronym, and if you hear it, you don't really know what that means.
House in Spanish.
It's house in Spanish.
Which, could work.
It could work. We also get Casa Mañana.
Oh, nice.
Confused with Casa Mañana in Fort Worth, which is a lovely place.
Yeah.
We're not a summer musical theater. We advocate for abused and neglected children.
So Pinocchio, no.
No, it's quite different.
Beauty and the Beast.
No.
I think I went there when I was a child a few times. I went there once as an adult. A guy did a movie premiere. It was kind of cool. So this is a pretty large organization then. This is, I thought maybe it was county oriented, or is it state, federal,
So there
local?
it was started in Seattle in the 70s. And there are over 900 programs nationwide and 72 in Texas. So in North Texas, it's pretty much every county. There's 16 counties have their own program. And then in some other areas that are more rural, there might be a couple of counties together.
That's cool. So court-appointed special advocate. Mm-hmm. What does that even mean? Do I get to go up there and who am I advocating for?
You are advocating for children who have been removed from their homes by Child Protective Services and placed in foster care. So either in the care of a foster family or a relative. And the reason that they're needed is that the caseworkers in the system and the attorneys, the child has an attorney too, they just have a lot of cases. It's kind of an overburdened system. And so what the CASA does, you have one case. And that may be one child or it may be a sibling group, but you don't have a caseload sitting on your desk of 30 kids plus their families and all the associated things that need to go with it. You have one.
Yeah.
And so you're able to sort of help prevent those kids from falling through the cracks. You advocate for their best interest. Our goal is to get the children back with their families, if at all possible. Last year, that was about 80% reunification, either with one or both parents or with a relative. That's what's better for the children long term. The volunteer has more time to look through a case file, find family, talk to family, get them involved, rather than saying hey, can you take your 5 nieces and nephews tonight? The question is more how can you be involved to support these kids? And if it turns out after a while you think that they could live with you, that's great. But when you lead with a question that's that hard, sometimes people are not able to do that, and then they drop out of the process when maybe they could have called the kids once a month. We don't want to cut family out of their lives just because the kid can't live with them. So there's a lot of things that the advocate does. They do educational advocacy, medical advocacy, and they're required to see the child twice a month. Now, in COVID times, that's virtual.
Okay.
But, we've had volunteers be super creative. One guy was teaching his teenager how to play guitar, and they've continued that via Zoom. And
okay, so I see CASA, a court-appointed special advocate, as someone I thought, and forgive me, I think I'm right, but it was their voice in court. Their voice in court.
So during a typical 12-month case, There's a court hearing, probably 3 to 4 court hearings during that time. And yes, the advocate has written up a court report that says this is everything that's going on since the last time we met.
Yeah.
This is how they're doing in school. This is where we are talking to grandma about maybe potentially moving in with her. This is what mom's doing on her services. This is what dad's doing. All of that information for the judge.
Okay.
And submitting that to the court. Yes.
Wow, you're going to make me work.
Uh-huh.
So, are the CASA advocates, the CASA, are they paid?
No.
No, completely
It's
volunteer.
Completely volunteer.
And you're talking one at a time. You're talking one child. You're handling one child.
One child or a sibling group.
Or a sibling group.
Yeah.
And so, is it abuse and such, or is it just simple divorce type thing?
It's not divorce custody. It's all abuse. And or neglect. So that encompasses physical abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, which is a huge category that can include domestic violence happening in the home. It can include substance abuse.
Yeah. This is serious trauma.
Yes.
Do advocates ever discuss with you guys their own trauma? And it's not like that the trauma they experience, but trauma from hearing with these kids or talking to these kids. Is that something that happens at all?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Right. So when you do this process, and because you're working with kids in the foster care system, there's a high level of confidentiality.
Yeah.
So we encourage the advocates so they're assigned a specialist, a child advocacy specialist that is an employee of CASA, that is their manager, their supervisor. Our volunteers are not supposed to, or they can, but they are not required to have a background in social work or the legal system or child welfare. So they're going to have a lot of questions. Their go-to person is their specialist. That is the one that has those answers or can get those answers. So they're encouraged to talk to that person. We also have a program called Helping Hearts, where your spouse or a friend or a sibling, a child, adult child can go through this and learn about what CASA is and the confidentiality process, so that there's somebody that you can talk to. Because we don't want you to experience these things and then not have a way to process them, because you're not allowed to disclose that information to just anybody.
Okay. Are you familiar with Big Brother Big Sister program? I feel it's similar. Obviously, you're doing different things, but it seems like we spent some time. You're required once or twice a month to be with them. You spend time with them. I guess this is more specific towards child custody, which you could argue have a very large impact on the future of the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a thing that I picked up a while back, and I love it. It's easier to build good men than it is to repair broken ones. And I think that's the cool part about working with kids and trying to get them on the right track early on. And so thanks for doing that. So the caseworker, there's a caseworker that handles multiple advocates. Is that what you were saying?
Right.
So I'm going to say caseworker, but there's what would the title be?
Child advocacy specialist.
A specialist has multiple advocates that they're working with,
Right.
To make sure, hey, this kid said something to me today that I don't know how to handle it, and they say, well, this is what you do and this is what you don't do. Okay. And you're on more the PR side. What got you into like CASA and advocating for children and?
It's super random. What got me into nonprofit in the first place was just sort of falling into it out of college. Went to UT, didn't want to leave Austin. I had an internship at the Austin Public Library Foundation and got a job at the ballet in Austin and worked there for 4 years in fundraising. And
Ballet?
The ballet.
Wow.
So then I moved.
You ballet?
No. I went to Miss Marianne's ballet school, kindergarten through 6th grade here in Grand
Oh, so you're
Prairie.
a pro. Oh, here in Grand Prairie?
Yeah.
Is that, there was one here.
Marianne Little. It was very close to here, yes.
Like, there's a chiropractic guy, seriously, like 2 blocks away, and that used to be a dance.
That's probably it, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I was
pretty
coming
cool.
over here. I was like, this is somewhat
So
vaguely
familiar.
yeah. So, but no, I didn't. There were a lot of people that worked there that used to be dancers. That was
You can't
not
stand on
me.
your toes?
Absolutely not.
I
But-
can.
You can?
No.
That's impressive.
I'm just-
What it taught me was like really good fundraising practices, because fundraising for performing arts is hard. It's not for everybody. And then I was familiar with CASA actually because of the program that's in Travis County in the Austin area, about what they did. So when I moved back up here and there was a job opening, that's how I got started. Now,
Land.
being drawn to this work to stay so long, I've been there over 8 years,
Wow.
is my mom was a social worker, and then a teacher. My sister is a social worker. That sort of giving back teacher kind of mentality has been in my family. And I thought if I was a social worker, I'd get burned out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because I would not be able to separate the work. So I like this because I'm on the business side and I'm able to enable the volunteers and the staff to do what they do.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this at you. I hope you don't take offense to it, but I'm very curious about this. So, giving back, working with kids, you're paid. What do you mean giving back? So I want to see. I'm kind of curious about your reaction to that thought. And there's a thought of like, I think some of the biggest nonprofits have CEOs that make millions of dollars, right? And so obviously you're not a CEO, and obviously your entire job is to raise funds to help kids, right? So what if you could make a living doing that? I was curious about your thoughts on giving back and being involved in a nonprofit, but yet getting paid. A lot of times, if I give money and I'm like, man, there's like a lot of people up there that are getting paid. Is my money going to them or is it going to the kid? Right. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm curious what you think of that idea and if other people accuse you of stuff like that.
I think
Accuse. It's not an accusal. It's just a thought.
I think a misconception about nonprofits is that they make very little money. There's a zero sum at the end of the year, because our goal is not to profit. It's not to see how much money we can raise so that we all get bonuses.
That's a good point.
It's
sales are up this month.
If we raise more money, then we're able to do more things. We're able to serve more kids, or we're able to put some money in reserve. So when something happens, like a global pandemic,
oh gosh,
we are not in a position where we have to lay anybody off, and then our services to children in foster care get cut, because this is a very difficult time for kids in foster care, and we're going to see more kids come into the system, and the need is going to be greater. So I think the misconception for nonprofit world compared to business is people assume that everything should be done on a shoestring budget, which we have a very lean organization, and that is the model is leveraging the power of the volunteers' hours and their mileage is what keeps us going. Otherwise, every CASA program would be a mini CPS department. If all of those people, we have over 400 volunteers. If all of those people were paid, we're just another government agency.
Okay, we have over 400 volunteers. Your particular CASA
In
organization,
Tarrant County.
Okay, so Tarrant County.
Yeah.
And so does Dallas County have their own CASA
Dallas
organization?
County has their own program, Dallas CASA. They probably have over 1,000 volunteers.
Wow. And do you spend time conversing and with them, or are y'all just a different entity handling different things?
At the program and CEO level, they do, because there are some similarities. There are some differences because county governments are different in the way they're set up. So we serve children that are removed within Tarrant County, and that could be, for Grand Prairie, that could be a slice of Grand Prairie, a slice of Dallas County, a slice of Ellis County.
Yeah.
So it's really by geography where that child was living, their residence. And if that falls within Tarrant County, that becomes a Tarrant County case within the Tarrant County family court system.
Yeah, wow.
And if it falls on the Dallas side, then it goes into the Dallas family court system.
So you do have to have some organization and meeting each other, you have a board of directors?
We do.
Who makes that up? Is it staff or is it all volunteer?
It's all
And then, so it is volunteer. Is that Joe Schmo who wants to volunteer, or do you try to get, I'm going to say elite or upper level, high profile maybe. I mean, I don't, whatever.
Right. So they're all volunteer, and it's people from the community. We've tried really hard to diversify in all areas. Our board, there are people with skill sets that are necessary. We have a lot of lawyers, but that's helpful because of the nature of what we do.
Absolutely. How many board members?
How many board? 22.
Okay. So did you have an executive board, I guess you call it then? That's
do.
more treasurer,
Right.
secretary, president
Right.
type deal. And how many on the executive board?
9.
9. So Chamber of Commerce does that. I think they have 30 or 40, and then they have 8 or 9 on the executive board, and so you got the input from everybody. And I imagine that part of that's awareness. I mean, the more people or positions you're able to fill, you're giving somebody a title and a word in your organization, which makes them a part of it, as opposed to just showing up on a Saturday
Right.
for fundraising. You've mentioned fundraising a couple of times. What type of fundraising are you doing? How often?
So we get money. We don't have any fee for service. So we don't charge the families. We don't charge the children. So we get some money from government funding that funnels through Texas CASA, so the statewide organization.
Wow.
And that is Federal Victims of Crime Act and statewide crime victims compensation.
Yeah, of course, but that's split up over 254 counties or whatever,
Right.
however many organizations there are.
Some money from the Attorney General's office, again, specifically
Yeah.
for victims of crime, which our children are, unfortunately. And then local foundations, so those, grant proposals, and then individuals and
Yeah.
corporations. We have 2 major special events. We have a clay shoot in the spring,
Wow.
in March, and then we have a superhero run in Arlington in October.
Superhero run, just a 5K, 10K type
A 5K,
thing. Yeah.
and a fun run. So the tagline is "Every child needs a hero, and abused children need superheroes."
Yeah,
So it's a dress up.
Yeah, we did something similar. Golly, it's been a couple of years ago now, but it was the heroes. Everybody dressed up and ran here in Grand Prairie. So I mean, I don't even like talking about it because every time I talk about it, it sounds like look what I do. But here in Grand Prairie, I've been involved in a lot of nonprofits and a lot of the fundraising. Particularly, my passion is with Children First. It's a counseling center. I'm curious. Do you spend time or do referrals over to counseling centers? I say that because obviously you're probably dealing with a lot of trauma with these kids,
Right.
Or is that kind of what that court-appointed advocate's role is?
No, advocating that therapy is received as part of the volunteer's role. There are certain agencies or providers that are contacted through the state to provide those services, but making sure that the child is receiving therapy, is receiving quality therapy, and by quality therapy, I mean a trauma-informed approach, and that they're seeing the same therapist, so that when they move placements, because generally they're going to move 3 to 4 times while they're in foster care is the average, that they're not switching therapists because that's not effective. And for a child to have to start over and retell their story every time they switch providers is traumatizing. By the last one, they just sort of clam up. They're like, I've done this before. It's helpful.
Gosh.
I'm not doing this again. So there's a lot of building of trust involved. And
you mentioned your mother. Is your mother married to your father? Mm-hmm. And no major trauma parents in your life? Mm-hmm. I mean, my parents are married. Like, I can't imagine having to wonder where I'm sleeping, wonder where my parents are, and if they're yelling at each other, whatever it is.
Right.
And you're trying to just be a child, really.
Right.
And so these advocates, I guess, are kind of their voice to kind of make their way through the system. Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
I think there are a lot of hard moments for kids in foster care that people don't think about. Because sometimes you think, okay, well, they've moved from a bad situation into something better. There was unsafe, and now they're safe.
Yeah.
But there's so much in there in terms of quality of life and what it feels like to move in the middle of the night or whenever it happens for CPS to show up, to give you a trash bag and say, put as much of your stuff in here as you can.
Yikes.
Get into somebody else's car, go to a foster home where they may be nice and welcoming, but
Yeah.
you don't know them.
No.
And they're saying, trust these people that
Yeah.
are strangers
Yeah.
and sleep at their house tonight.
Wow.
And if you have a large sibling group, there might not be a space big enough for all of you. Maybe ever, but certainly maybe not at the beginning. And
Yeah.
so some of your siblings go over here and some go over here. And then you're expected to go to a new school the next day and pay any kind of attention to what teachers are telling you when you have no idea what's going on with your parents. You're thinking about the siblings that are not living with you. There's a lot in there that people don't think about, and a lot of well-intentioned things
Yeah.
that I think we're realizing now are just really hard for kids. And then we don't understand why placements break down or their behaviors are bad at school, and then they continue to get moved again and again and again. And so putting yourself in the place of that child and
Yeah.
what that feels like, and no wonder you can't pay attention in school. No wonder you're angry.
Yeah, he's a bad kid.
Right.
What? I mean, that's
Right.
That's so funny how that happens so easily.
Right.
You just paint him as a bad kid.
Right.
And I mean, I was a knucklehead. You know, my brother more or less was the saint, and I was just like the bad kid. And it wasn't my parents' fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just the way things happened. I mean, I grew out of it, sort of. I mean, I think I still have the same tendencies and such, but I mean, I was kicked out of school in 8th grade. I had a principal, and I've had him on my podcast. He was a former NFL player. He never like punished me. He was always like, "Come here," he'd talk to me about stuff.
Right.
And it wasn't never like deep conversations that I let it all out, but he was just like, he knew that I was more. He said he always said I was fronting. You're fronting, Cole. He was a NFL receiver at one point, but his taking the time to talk to me
Right.
was far superior than whipping my butt or putting me in ISS or punishing me. And we go now. God, COVID just ruined everything. But I go to that same school, and the counselors would pick out a group of 8 to 10 kids that are just bad kids. I said bad. They're bad kids. And sure enough, you get to talking to them, and it's just like some of them are a little bit attention deficit. Some of them, they're so smart that this is like nothing to them, so they're not doing any of it. And anyway, it's just interesting when you dive a little deeper. You know, I want. There's an argument of like we teach the kids the same thing. It's like I think we've gone beyond that now with individual learning and more options for kids. I mean, school districts are like completely being transformed right now. Artistics, career, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and it's being catered to the specific needs and characteristics of a kid. Some people argue against that, but I find that I think it's pretty powerful, and when you capture a child at an early age, get them ingrained, it keeps them from doing all the things that get them in trouble. If you get encapsulated with some type of engineering or whatever trade that they're teaching you, or a higher level of study, it's pretty cool. So, how you said the clay shoot? That's an interesting thing because I feel like with the right group of participants, you could raise some serious money and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with a quail ranch in East Texas. You know, they have corporate sponsors go out there and bring their customers. They pay $10,000-$20,000 for a weekend, and they go out and shoot quail.
Right.
Yeah, there's a whole nother argument on what the ethics of that and such. But I mean, simply a simple clay shoot could be a lot of fun.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about that.
It is a lot of fun. It's a lot. I had never planned one before, so the first year I sat around in meetings and did a lot of smiling and nodding while people talked about guns and things I had no idea about,
bang,
and
bang.
I would just Google it later. But what makes ours a little bit different is we have corporate sponsors. We have people that come out and bring clients or bring their employees, buddies that just shoot together, that make up a team. We also have a friend of first responder level.
Oh, cool.
So we have people that can sponsor police, fire, EMS.
That's a great
to
idea.
Come shoot. So actually, Grand Prairie usually wins. They've won every year.
Yeah?
Their police department team is very good.
Where is that? Where does this take place at?
It's at Alpine Shooting Range, which
Yeah,
is
I've heard
in
of
Fort Worth.
Alpine.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm gonna ask some of our police.
Yeah. Ask them about their clay shoot team. They're very good.
Well, our Chamber of Commerce, we're going to be competitors,
Mm-hmm.
was asking me about if we did a clay shoot fundraiser,
Mm-hmm.
would you do it? What kind of? Okay, so when is it?
It's March 26th.
And as of right now, you're thinking you're gonna.
As of right now, hopefully we're on.
What would keep you from doing it on March 26th? Like
I don't.
lockdown?
Yeah,
Double.
probably.
Even if the cases are the same as they are right now, I feel like you could get it. We've learned to comply and
Right.
the rules and such.
Well, a clay shoot is a little bit similar to a golf tournament in that it's spread out. The stations are spread out. You're in a golf cart. You're going to have to agree with your pod of people that you're shooting with that you're cool for doing that. But, probably our biggest obstacle would be we have a morning session and then an afternoon session, and then they overlap for lunch. And that's where we do our speaking and we do our raffle, stuff like that. So we could spread people out more.
Is it
if
a
we needed
tournament?
to.
I mean,
it's.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like that sounds like a long time. I mean,
Well,
I guess
not
I guess
everybody is there all day. Just the staff is there all day. You either pick the morning or you pick the afternoon.
Oh, so I sign up, I go shoot my clay.
Right.
My brother's name is Clay. I feel bad saying that. And submit my score, and then later on we find out
Right.
who did. It's like when we do our golf tournaments. So I've done more golf tournament fundraisers than I can think of. Besides luncheons, everybody's playing golf at the same time, and you
Right.
turn in your score and you have dinner because that's still 4 or 5 hours plus dinner. So
Right.
I imagine it's a similar time frame. What kind of prizes? I mean, like. So I'm sorry. What's the entry fee?
So it's $1,000 for a team,
Team, and what's on a team?
4 people,
4 people.
and then 300.
I mean,
a person.
golfing's 175 I think we have one that's 125, but 175 a person. Plus you end up buying all the extra stuff.
Right.
Maybe you do that there too. So that's $250 a person. That's not too far off. So $1,000 for a team. And then you have different sponsorship levels.
We
I'm
have
sure.
different sponsorship levels. That friend of first responder level is $750 to sponsor. And you could come out and say hi to the people. That doesn't include you shooting.
Yeah.
But it
So a $750 could get a team of 4 first responders.
yeah.
And fire, police mostly.
Right.
Okay. What about military?
We don't have military. We could.
Sure.
We could.
Would you throw that in the?
We could throw that in. We could throw in.
Hey, if you want to give us $750 and have
Yeah.
4 military guys go,
Yeah, we've had.
you'll take it.
Our program director's husband is a game warden. We've had the game
wow.
wardens out.
Yeah.
The game wardens. This is their thing.
Yeah.
So,
One of my, I only know him through hunting. And I haven't seen him in a few years, but I see him when I hunt. He's in the military and he's going to go into game warden when he's done here in a few years. That's a cool job. I feel like, I don't know if I'd like the legal enforcement action, but the being out, your job is literally to go
Outdoors.
to ranches and check on people. So can I sponsor the clays?
sure.
If
You want to
you-
put your brother's name on them
Yeah,
and have them.
it's already there. It's an easy thing. I'm diving down the sponsorship levels, I guess. So, what do I sponsor if I want to be a sponsor? Just here's your money, and you put my name on.
We put your name on. So there's 2 different courses at Alpine. So there's a course sponsor. Your name's the coal course, the clay course.
Yeah. The clay.
Yeah, and then down from there, depending on where your signs are, things like that.
Yeah. What and then what was the second fundraiser? You said the 2 major.
The superhero run. That's
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah.
Arlington. So it's at the Levitt.
Is that certified? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
You about to say Levitt?
At the Levitt Pavilion, yeah. You start there, you kind of run south, come back around.
Yeah. How many times? How far along? How many times have you done that? Has that been a while?
Yeah, I think
it's a
next year will
regular
be our
run?
seventh year.
Yeah. Did you do the clay shoot this past March? No, that was like
No.
right. That was middle
That
of
was
lockdown.
so hard. It was a real game time decision because it
What,
was the
2
last weekend in March, and so
2 weeks before was
yeah,
when.
yeah.
So I'm sure everything was like almost ready.
Oh yeah. What was nice is that we actually didn't have to pay. You pay Alpine based on the number of people that show up.
Yeah.
So we weren't locked into some contracts like
Yeah.
some other nonprofits were, where they lost money by not being able to have an event. We hadn't paid for the food yet, things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so entries.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if they wanted their money back, but were people?
People were so generous.
They're just
so
like-
what we ended up doing was just canceling and asking people if it was okay to keep their money.
Yeah.
Because there was so many unknowns that, if we postponed until May, do we postpone until June? You can't
Yeah.
postpone much further than June because then it's too hot. And what do how far do we go? And do we have to postpone and then reschedule again? And so what we said was, there's just a lot of unknowns. We're just going to cancel. We would appreciate it if you would consider your sponsorship a donation. And everybody did.
Yeah. Is the run? When is that?
It's
typically?
in October.
So this past October, did you do it?
We did virtual.
Okay, you do your own run,
Yeah.
right, and then turn it in.
Yeah. You download a
that's-
specific app and upload your time.
Is that certified? I don't know.
I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily be able to use that to
Yeah.
qualify for
That's between
Boston
you-
Marathon or something.
Yeah, that's between you and the
Right.
certification company. We did the pumpkin run every year. It's
Yeah.
really fun. The 5K, 10K pumpkin run, and they didn't do it this year. They tried to do the virtual. I don't know how it went. I used to be very involved in Rotary, and not so much anymore.
We've done some mutual advertising with the pumpkin run.
Okay, good.
Some flyers back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. One of our volunteer opportunities was go to the other races and put flyers out and
Yeah.
such. So
Yeah.
that's a good.
That's how you get their runners.
Yeah, you advertise to runners, and it's amazing. Some of the runners actually get upset. They're so serious about. I don't want to take anything away from them. It is a serious thing, right? But this is it's planned. It's timed. I'm going to do this run, and you're telling me I can't. And they'll raise.
Yeah.
But okay, so with Rotary, we would. It's a nonprofit, but we raise the funds, and then a month later, write checks to 20 different organizations. If you haven't, that'd be a good. I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, but depending on your relationship with them, I guess.
Right.
But they would just say, "Come out, have lunch with us," and then they do a little check presentation, $1,000. I mean, I don't know, but $1,000 for a lunch, it's
Yeah.
pretty good. What about luncheons? Do y'all do that very much?
We don't have that. We do every other year. We have a shoe fashion show in South Lake, the Ruby Slipper Soiree.
I need to go check out some shoes.
You wear red shoes. There's
Do guys wear red shoes?
there.
Because
My
some
boss
red
does
kicks or
not
something.
wear red shoes, but there was a waiter one time that had red Converse on. I was like, "Thank you for participating.
Well,
you
if
get a
yeah.
raffle ticket for wearing red shoes."
Yeah, this isn't a sexist thing.
No, it's not. Absolutely not.
Everybody's welcome.
So that's a really fun event, and that's helped sort of our following or awareness, community awareness in the Northeast region of Tarrant County, because
Yeah.
the different thing about Tarrant County than some of the others is that we have so many cities within it. Now, Dallas County does have a little bit of Grand Prairie, a little bit of Irving,
yeah.
things like that. But Tarrant's Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, Keller, Benbrook,
Jeez.
Saginaw. So we've discovered that for fundraising purposes, because our office is in Fort Worth, but there's not really anything to see in our office because
Yeah.
we are volunteer based. Our volunteers are out in the community. So we have our run intentionally in Arlington. We have that other event in Southlake. We just had an event
Spread it out.
in Mansfield, and we found that if you don't go to those communities, especially to try and recruit volunteers, it's just not the same. So building relationships in all of those communities has been really important for fundraising, but volunteer recruitment is always something that we're doing.
Yeah. How many court-appointed special advocates do you have currently in your county?
I think we have about 450 right
Okay.
now, like actively working a case, but we have over 500 kids on a waiting list.
Okay, and that was my next question. So that's only half of what you need,
Right.
if not less. How do I become a court-appointed special advocate?
You've moved away from the mic.
I know. Thank you for getting back on me with that one. Hey,
So-
I'm the snob, not you.
Oh, okay. So we have what we call an information session at least once a week. That's the first step, and it's an hour and 15 minutes. Right now, they're all virtual.
Yeah.
And it's us walking you through what the process looks like, what being an advocate looks like, what the time expectations are going to be, sort of getting into the nitty gritty. Usually there's another
information session.
Usually there's another volunteer there to answer questions.
Yeah, someone who's like doing it currently.
Doing it.
And where's that at? Can I go to the website
You
and
go to
find
the website is speakupforachild.org is our
Okay.
website, and
speakupforchild.org.
Speak Up
Love
for
it.
a Child.
For a child.org.
Yeah.
I love that's a good start. Like, I feel like sometimes you don't even know what you're getting involved with. Even I'm thinking about that right now for boards and such, like to get people to actually volunteer for the board, to say, hey, this is the board. This is what we do.
Right.
This is what we expect from you. I never even thought about having the simple information. I guess it's probably easier virtual, right? Because anybody can log in.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it
What if
helps
it
with
wasn't-
capacity for sure.
What if
'cause
it wasn't virtual? How would you do that
you
information?
would come to our office
Yeah.
in Fort Worth,
Yeah,
in
like
our
a
training
training room.
Yeah. But the capacity there is about 30 people. The capacity on Zoom is
Well,
pretty much unlimited.
I'm
So-
sorry. If you're having 30 people a week,
So the conversion rate is
Yeah.
not the same, because
Not
what we're
nearly.
asking you to do is not, build a house on a Saturday, or it's a long-term commitment. It's 12 to 15 hours a month, depending on sort of where you are in the case, how many moving parts there are.
Yeah.
3 to 4 court hearings throughout the year.
Wow.
And we ask for at least a 12-month commitment, because that's the typical length of the case.
Golly.
Now, what we don't tell people is sometimes the cases go longer than
Yeah.
that. So we have some advocates that have been with their kids for 3+ years.
And that's that advocate and that kid for that 3+ years, nothing changes as long. So what
That's the point. That's part of it, is consistency.
what happens in a year and a half when I'm like, man, I just had a kid, or man, my job just changed. Unfortunately,
you have to leave. I mean,
Yeah.
that's life. It's volunteer. We have people, especially this year, where people's jobs have changed, their work circumstances have changed, their kids are at home.
Yeah.
They're-
Do you make a special effort to make sure that, say that kid's been doing it for a year and a half, he loses the advocate, is he on top of the list?
Yeah.
I guess it is definitely, y'all have determined it's beneficial to keep an advocate with that person.
Absolutely.
Even though the others don't have one, since that person's on a route.
Right.
What?
The staff member will keep the case themselves until they find somebody else to assign to it. And if you're in care for that long, you're either probably looking for an adoptive placement. You might be older. And in that case, what we're looking at for probably middle school to high school is, are you on a track to age out?
Yeah.
And, some programs do extra classes and education for aging out and what life's going to look like when you turn 18. We'll do some of that, but we also are still working on finding a placement for that child, family connections, looking back through, like, who was a teacher you had back in the day that you really connected with. Let's see if we can find them. Just be a person that you can call if
teacher
you need
back
something.
in the day. I like that.
Because when you're learning these things in a vacuum and then you're on your own, so what if you took a class about how to do a resume or apply for a job or do a rental application? If you hit a question that you don't know how to answer and you don't have anybody to call, what are you going to do? You kind of give up. I called my parents so many times my freshman year of college with the dumbest questions.
What does the gas light on my car mean?
Yeah. Daddy, what is this? My dad worked at Lockheed. He got a lot in Grand Prairie.
Cool.
He got a lot of calls from me.
Yeah.
Freshman year of college.
Well done, Dad. Okay, so I'll go to the information session. This is like, man, I think I want to do this.
Yeah. If you think you want to do this, you're going to fill out an application. We do a personal interview, and then you'll do a background check, CPS check. When the fingerprint places are open, you'll do fingerprint background check.
So can y'all even take somebody on? Yeah, they can do fingerprints now.
I think some of those are opening back up. We there's other background things in place that we can do until those open up.
So you go background checked. You're not a mass murderer,
right? And
you're an above average good person. Hey, here's your kid. Or is there even more?
There's training.
Yeah, a lot of.
There's 33 hours of training.
Yeah, and is that virtual? Okay,
right.
Golly,
I know.
I don't want, because things may not go back. I mean,
so before there was some things online and some things in the classroom, quote unquote, at our office.
Yeah.
And so we'll move back to at least some face-to-face, because there's more opportunities for breakout session, like actual good conversations.
Yeah.
A little bit better face-to-face. What we have learned is there are a lot of things we can do virtual that we didn't know that we could do. So that's helpful, especially for our continuing education, that there are things that we could put online. There are things that we could do virtual when people don't have to come to our office in Fort Worth that don't live in Fort Worth.
33 hours.
33 hours.
That's legit.
It's legit, because we're not asking you to do something small. We're asking you're going to learn about the child welfare system. You're going to learn about the legal system.
Yeah.
So you don't walk into a courtroom when courtrooms are open and have no idea what's going on. And there's a lot of legal jargon going on that doesn't make any sense to you. You're going to have kind of cheat sheet. This is what these things mean.
I can see the problem with getting advocates. That's a serious commitment.
It's a serious commitment, but we have some things that we fight against. The misperception is that I don't have enough time. So a lot of our volunteers actually work full time.
Yeah.
So if you have a flexible enough schedule that you could take a lunch break at a different time to be able to go to court at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
If you're a teacher, an active teacher, that doesn't generally work because you have to get a sub and it's a whole thing. Yeah. But if you have job flexibility where you could go to a court hearing from 10 to 11, whatever, 3 to 4 times a year, you can do this.
What is the thought process on paying a court-appointed special advocate? Zero. Okay, I mean, that's the response I got. And I wondered, and I say that I'm not in it for the money, but if you need 500 more of them, and you offered $100 a month, I mean, I don't know. I'm just, I mean, a bank board of directors is typically volunteers or the vice president of the bank or whatever, and they usually get a stipend. It makes it worth their time to come and do these things. Sounds like y'all have never even come close to considering that. Is that
No,
and
it would
I wouldn't encourage that. And I don't want people to do it for the money, right? I'm enjoying the thought process, and
it completely changes the model. You know,
Yeah.
then you've got then you've got 400 part-time employees
ugh,
and all of that. You know, there's
Yeah.
the volunteer aspect is what we're trying to get people to do.
Yeah.
It's what makes us able to serve as many children as we do.
Okay, so let's go
we're
this
leveraging
route.
that volunteer.
take away your I want to say CASA advocate, but I'm just being retarded with my words. So take away your advocate. How is this handled without advocates? I mean, how are these kids? You've got one caseworker hoping to keep up with 400, 500, 1,000 kids, I guess.
Well, if they don't have an advocate, they still have a caseworker through the system.
Which that's always been, right?
That's always been.
Always, whether
They have
it's some
an
type
attorney
of
appointed.
CPS worker who's got a caseload.
Right.
And so instead of that caseworker going to these kids individually, they're going through, they're talking to the advocate.
So they have both. The caseworker still has the things that they have to do,
Yeah.
regardless of whether there's an advocate on the case or not. The advocate's just able to provide a lot more detail because they're able to devote a lot more time to that family.
It's the best description I have is the kid's voice in court.
Right.
That was the description I kind of got.
Yeah.
That was a friend of mine that did it here in Dallas County. She was. It was kind of a surprise. I didn't expect that from them. But on the same note, I'm so glad that they did. Okay, so I think that's about it. You have the major fundraiser coming up in March. I'll try to get some more information on that and post it whenever I release this thing. Anything else that you can throw in for CASA that would help with either recruitment or fundraising?
I mean, I'll make a pitch. I don't know when this is going to go up, but if you are looking to make a tax deductible gift before the end of the year, you can do that on our website.
Yeah.
speakupforachild.org.
Okay.
Volunteer recruitment, we've got a waiting list of over 500 kids because of the need in Tarrant County, not because of an inability to recruit volunteers.
Yeah.
It is a challenging thing, so it doesn't mean that it's
400 is a lot of volunteers.
It's a lot. So it doesn't mean that we are not recruiting volunteers. It means that unfortunately, in the rate at which Tarrant County is growing means that there are more kids removed. So Tarrant County has the third highest number of confirmed cases of abuse and neglect behind Houston and Dallas. And that's just the numbers. That's just a population thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's maybe a little bit more awareness about people calling things in. There's teachers that are educated about what they need to report, medical professionals. What I think everybody thinks is happening is that the cases that would have been called in by teachers are not right now when school is virtual. So that's something to think about, and especially at the beginning of the pandemic, there were a lot of stories about kids in the hospital.
Yeah.
Some really severe cases at Cook Children's in Fort Worth. Stress, job stress, all of this compounding stress, especially for families that were already.
Yeah. I love the idea. I mean, this is awesome. I'm so glad you do this. You got this problem that really, more or less, is undefeatable. I mean, but yet you guys are in there like grinding away, trying to save just that one kid and make a difference in that one kid's life.
Well,
and
those are the moments that make it worth it.
Yeah.
When you're slogging through and the numbers feel unattainable, that this 17-year-old kid got adopted before he aged out, that these siblings went back to their mom, who's been working really hard, and she got herself out of a domestic violence situation, and she did the classes and did everything she was supposed to, and now these kids get to go home. Or we found a grandma in Colorado, and we're going to make this work.
wow,
or,
yeah.
we have I went shopping on Monday night for a quinceañera dress.
Yeah.
You're
older than 15.
It was not for me.
Oh, okay.
But thank you for pointing that out. But to be able to give, the other thing we talk about in foster care is normalcy. So, as much as everybody's kids are not being able to do the things that they usually do in terms of after school activities and that kind of stuff, when kids are in foster care and they're moved around, or there are a lot of foster kids in the home, they're not doing those things ever.
Wow.
So to be able to have a child that's been through so much in her first 14 years, to sort of say, well, I guess, I'll just have a little birthday party. And then she kind of opened up to her advocate and said, I guess I always dreamed of having a big quinceañera, and I guess that won't happen for me because I'm in foster care. And we're like, no.
We're going to do this.
Figure this out. This person's going to do the cake, and this person's going to find a dress.
This party's going down.
This party's going to happen.
Cool. Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I just think it's an amazing thing, and I didn't even know it existed until a friend of mine did it. And so if I can shed a little light on it for people to get involved and know what's going on, doesn't seem like it's an incredible taker of your time, but well worth it. And
Absolutely.
And the investment in your fellow man would grow exponentially for the time you spend doing this stuff. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so
Nice
much for having
meeting you.
me. Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
So cool.